People have asked me over the years, Jim, how do you develop an above average income? And I tell them it's very simple. You develop an above average income by becoming an above average person. That's the key. That's where it begins. Not with the government, not with your employer, not with luck or chance, but with you. You must decide to rise above average in how you act, how you think, how you approach your life. Average is everywhere. Just look around. But if you want more, you've got to become more. And you can't become more by doing less. You don't get an above average return on below average effort. That's not how the system works. Now, some people want to earn a better living, but they don't even work on something as simple as their handshake. I know that sounds small, almost ridiculous, but it's a signal. It says something about who you are. When you meet someone and you give them a firm, sincere, confident handshake, that leaves an impression. A weak handshake says, I'm not ready. I don't care that much. I'm not really here. But a strong, deliberate handshake says, you've got my attention. I respect this moment. And that's where it starts. The little things make the difference between average and above average. Then there's your smile. Do you have an above average smile? Is it genuine? Do people feel welcome when you smile, or does it feel forced? People can tell. They always can. A good smile, just like a good handshake, can open doors, soften hearts, and set the tone for everything that follows. And then your energy, your enthusiasm. Do you show up with an above average excitement for life? Or do you drag yourself through the day? You see, people are drawn to energy, not chaos, not noise, real energy. That quiet enthusiasm that says, I'm here. I'm ready. Let's do something today. And let me tell you this. If you want to stand out, develop an above average interest in other people. Listen to them. Ask questions. Be curious. Most people are so consumed with their own concerns that they rarely look up and give someone else their full attention. But if you want to rise, become the kind of person who pays attention to others. Because people remember that. They don't always remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. An above average person makes others feel important, valued, seen. And how about intensity? Do you have an above average intensity to win? A seriousness about your goals, your development, your vision for the future? Or are you coasting, hoping things will somehow improve on their own? Let me be direct. One of the greatest frustrations in life is looking for an above average opportunity while remaining an average person. That's called frustration. You keep reaching, but nothing moves. You keep hoping, but nothing changes. Because hope is not a strategy. What's needed is change. Your change. I remember when I was young and frustrated, trying to figure things out. I met Mr. Schoaf, and he told me something that changed the course of my life. He said, Jim, if you want to be wealthy and happy the rest of your life, just learn this lesson well. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That hit me. I was so focused on the job, the paycheck, the circumstances. I never thought to work on me, but when I did, when I started to improve myself, to grow my mind, my attitude, my habits, everything else began to change. Because the better you are, the better things become. And Schoaf, as kind as he was, never hesitated to tell me the truth. I remember one day I was giving him a list, a rundown of all the reasons things weren't working out for me. The economy, the company, my background. I had it all. And he listened politely. Then he said, Jim, I've got the answer for you, but you've got to listen carefully. And I did. He said, for things to change for you, you've got to change. It wasn't what I wanted to hear, but it was exactly what I needed to hear. And I'm giving it to you now, just the way he gave it to me. If you want things to change, you've got to change. If you want things to get better, you've got to get better. Otherwise, nothing changes. Back then, I used to say, I hope things will change. I hope the economy would shift. I hope the job would improve. I hope someone would notice me. But hope wasn't enough. And eventually I realized nothing was going to change until I did. That's when I got serious. That's when I began the process of becoming an above average person. Not perfect, just better. A little more each day. I started with what I could control. My attitude, my habits, my discipline. And little by little, everything around me started to shift. So if you find yourself stuck, tired of average results, don't blame the system. Don't wait for the world to wake up and reward you. Become someone worth rewarding. Work on your handshake, your smile, your listening skills, your personal discipline. Work on your character, your courage, your daily effort. Start there. That's where it begins. Because once you become an above average person, an above average life is just a matter of time. Next, for things to change, you've got to change. I used to think, like so many others, that life would get better if the world around me would just improve. I thought if the government changed, my situation would change. If taxes were lowered, if prices came down, if the company made better decisions, then surely I'd be on my way. I held on to that idea for a long time. I kept waiting, I kept hoping, but nothing seemed to change. And I'll tell you something, hope without a foundation, without personal action, leads to one thing: frustration. And that's exactly where I found myself. Then I met a man who gave me the key that unlocked everything. His name was Mr. Shove. Now, he was kind, he was generous, but he didn't sugarcoat the truth. He looked me in the eye and said, "Jim, if you want things to change, you've got to change." That hit me like a lightning bolt. I had never heard it put quite that way before. Up until that moment, I had been walking around with a long list of reasons why I wasn't doing well. A detailed list of what was wrong with the world, with other people, with everything except me. But Shove's words made it crystal clear. The reason I wasn't doing well wasn't out there. It was in here. And that's a tough truth to swallow. It means there's no one to blame. It means there's no easy fix, no outside rescue. But it also means this: you hold the power. And that realization was both sobering and empowering. Because if I could change, then everything else could change with me. Not because the world would suddenly be different, but because I would see it, act in it, and respond to it differently. You see, I used to say, I sure hope things will get better. But eventually I learned that hope isn't a strategy. Hope is a start, but it's not enough. What matters is what you do. I used to wait for things to improve. Now I improve. I used to say, if only my circumstances would shift. Now I ask, what do I need to shift within me? That's the real turning point. That's when growth begins. When you stop waiting for the world to change and decide to become the kind of person who can thrive no matter what the world is doing. And let me tell you something else. Circumstances don't create success. You do. You've got to stop saying, I'll do better when things are better. No, you've got to do better so that things get better. That's the way it works. The world responds to you. The marketplace rewards value. And you bring value by becoming a person of value. That means reading more books. That means developing discipline. That means thinking deeper, showing up earlier, staying later, making the calls, following through. That means saying no to excuses and yes to personal responsibility. Mr. Shove told me another thing I'll never forget. He said, Jim, don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills. Don't wish for fewer challenges. Wish for more wisdom. That flipped everything around for me. Because that put the control back in my hands. It meant I didn't have to wait on the economy, the weather, the boss, or the traffic. I could go to work on myself. My thinking, my habits, my attitude. And that would make all the difference. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. Change is uncomfortable. Growth requires effort. It takes time, repetition, awareness. But the return is enormous. When you grow, you start to see opportunities that were invisible to the old version of you. When you change, your world changes. Not because the world itself transformed, but because you became someone new. You look at problems and see possibilities. You face rejection and keep going. You stop reacting and start responding. That's the power of personal development. There's a great spiritual that says, it's not my mother, not my father, not my brother, not my sister, but it's me, O Lord, standing in the need of prayer. That line captures the heart of what I'm saying. Don't look around. Look within. Don't blame the outside. Take responsibility for the inside. Because when you change, everything begins to change. Your work changes. Your income changes. Your relationships change. Your confidence changes. Your life begins to take on a new shape because you've taken on a new shape. So if you've been waiting for a better time, let me tell you, the time is now. If you've been hoping the world will finally align in your favor, I'm here to say, don't wait for the world. Build the favor within you. Become the person who can handle more, achieve more, give more. And remember the words that changed my life, the words I now give to you. For things to change, you've got to change. Next, life is like the changing seasons. One of the most important realizations you can ever come to in life is this. Life operates by seasons. Just like the earth rotates through spring, summer, fall, and winter, so does your life, your business, your relationships, your finances, your emotions. Everything moves in cycles. Nothing stays the same forever. That's how it's designed. And once you understand that truth, you stop being surprised by the cold or unprepared for the heat. You stop hoping that life will be all sunshine. You start preparing for the rain. You stop asking for everything to be easy, and you start developing the strength and wisdom to move through every season with purpose. I remember sitting with a group of executives one day, bright, successful, sharp people. They asked me a simple question. Jim, what do you think the next decade is going to be like? I smiled and said, gentlemen, based on everything I've seen, I can tell you it's going to be about like it's always been. And that's the truth. The next 10 years will be like the last 10, and like the 10 before that. The tide will come in and the tide will go out. It will get dark, and then it will get light. Opportunities will come and difficulties will follow. That pattern hasn't changed in 6,000 years, and it won't be changing anytime soon. That means the key to a better life is not in trying to alter the seasons. You can't. It's in learning how to handle them. You can't stop winter from coming. You can't freeze summer in place. You can't plant in December and expect a harvest in January. The seasons come and go with or without your permission. And that's the great wisdom of life. Stop trying to control what you can't and start mastering what you can. You can't change the seasons, but you can change yourself. And that was a revelation to me. For a long time, I was trying to negotiate with life. I wanted it to be always spring, always opportunity, always light, always progress. But life doesn't work that way. It's not built for comfort. It's built for growth. And growth requires change. Growth requires resistance. Growth requires seasons. There's a certain rhythm to the way life unfolds. The seeds go into the ground in the spring. They're tended through the summer. They're harvested in the fall. And then comes the winter, when everything slows and rests and prepares again for the next spring. That's not just agriculture, that's your life. That's your personal development, your career, your goals. There are seasons when everything blooms and seasons when everything seems quiet. Seasons of energy and seasons of waiting. Seasons of abundance and seasons of testing. But they all serve a purpose. Every one of them. The problem most people face is not the seasons. It's their resistance to them. They want things to always be easy, always exciting, always comfortable. And when winter comes, they panic. When summer brings its demands, they retreat. When fall requires hard decisions, they hesitate. And so they never complete the cycle. They never grow. They never become who they could be. But if you embrace the seasons, if you study them, prepare for them, adapt to them, you become strong. You become wise. You stop wishing for better weather and start becoming a better person. That's when life begins to work for you. Not because it got easier, but because you got prepared. Frank Sinatra had a song once. He said, life is like the seasons. And he was right. It turns. It moves. It has its ups and downs. But here's the secret. The seasons are predictable. You know that winter will come. You know that spring will follow. You know that summer will stretch you. And you know that fall will test what you've done. That's not guesswork. That's structure. That's a pattern you can build your life on. Once I understood that, I stopped blaming the winter. I stopped cursing the summer heat. I stopped wasting time being surprised by the storm. And I started asking better questions. I asked, how can I grow through this? How can I prepare better next time? What should I be learning in this season that I'll need in the next one? That shift changed everything. Because now, no matter what season I'm in, I'm working. I'm learning, I'm building, I'm ready. So don't try to change the seasons. That's not your job. Your job is to grow through them. Your job is to develop the character that stands tall in the cold, the discipline that works hard in the heat, the wisdom to know when to plant, when to protect, and when to reap. That's how life is designed. It's a game of seasons. And the better you understand them, the better your results will be. If the tide goes out, don't panic. It always comes back. If the sun sets, don't fear. It always rises. If things are quiet now, get ready, because the energy will return. The question is, will you be ready when it does? Will you have planted when you should have? Will you have prepared when it was time to prepare? That's what separates the successful from the struggling. Not the seasons, but what they did in each one. The seasons won't change, but you can. That's the greatest power you hold. So get to work, not on the weather, but on you. Next, how to handle life's winters. There will be winters. That's not a maybe, that's not a possibility. That's a certainty. Winters always follow fall, just like night follows day. That's the rhythm of life. And when I say winter, I don't just mean the cold months of the year. I'm talking about the winters of your life, the difficult seasons, the challenges, and the downturns, the moments where things fall apart, the heartbreaks, the failures, the bankruptcies, the setbacks. They come to all of us, and they come regularly. The question is not if winter will arrive. The question is, what will you do when it comes? I used to dread the winters. I used to wish I could skip them altogether. But that was before I understood their purpose. That was before I learned from Mr. Schoaf, who told me, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Winters are not the enemy. They're not the punishment. They're the test. They're the place where you find out who you really are. When everything is stripped back, when the applause fades, when the momentum stops, what's left? That's winter. And that's where character is forged. There are all kinds of winters. Financial winters, where the money runs out and the bills keep coming. There are relationship winters, where hearts break and trust is lost. Business winters, when customers disappear and nothing seems to work. Emotional winters, where you feel like you're in the dark with no clear direction. Personal winters, where you're tired, where you're discouraged, where you're wondering if anything will ever work out. You see, life hands those to everyone. And just like the natural seasons, you don't get to control when they come or how long they last. But you do get to decide how you show up during them. You can't rip January off the calendar because it's cold. You can't stop the wind by yelling at it. But you can get a coat, you can build a fire. You can prepare yourself to endure and even grow through the winter. That's the part most people miss. You can grow in winter. It's not just a time of loss. It's a time of reflection, renewal, and quiet transformation. The soil looks dead, but deep beneath the surface, roots are growing. That's what your winter is for. To strengthen your roots, to deepen your understanding, to prepare you for the next season of growth. And I'll tell you something else. Don't be surprised when the winter hits you right after the opportunity, because that's how it usually works. Right after spring when you plant. Right after summer when you labor. Right after fall when you harvest. Then comes winter, the season where it feels like everything is silent, where nothing seems to be moving. And if you're not prepared, that silence will scare you. But if you understand the rhythm, you'll welcome the pause. You'll know that winter is not the end. It's the in-between. So how do you handle the winters of life? You get stronger, you get wiser, you get better. You do not complain, because complaining won't bring the sun back. You do not retreat into bitterness, because bitterness won't grow your garden. You use the time. You read, you reflect. You plan, you evaluate. You ask the hard questions and you give yourself the honest answers. That's winter work. And those who do the winter work emerge into spring with power, clarity, and energy. Those who don't, well, they keep repeating the cycle, unprepared every time the cold returns. There's a line from a song Barbra Streisand sang. It goes, "You don't bring me flowers anymore." That's a song of winter, the time when what used to be isn't anymore, when the love cools, when the passion fades, when the music stops. But it's in those moments that you have a choice. You can mourn the end, or you can prepare for a new beginning. That's what winter gives you. The space to start over, to rebuild from the inside out. When I was younger, I didn't know what to do with the winter. I resisted it. I complained about it. I wished it away. But now I welcome it. I don't enjoy the pain, but I understand the purpose. I know that every winter I endure prepares me for a better spring. And more importantly, every winter I prepare for doesn't knock me down like it used to, because I know it's coming. I expect it. I plan for it. Don't let winter catch you off guard. Don't act like life has betrayed you when difficulty arrives. It hasn't betrayed you. It's just doing what life does. And your job is to respond, not react. To face it, not flee from it. To become the kind of person who can withstand the cold without losing hope, who can stand in the dark without forgetting that morning always comes. That's what separates people who grow from people who shrink. Not whether they go through winter, but how they go through it. So get ready, not in fear, but in wisdom. Strengthen your mind. Build your discipline. Prepare your soul. So when the winter comes, as it surely will, you're not shaken. You're steady. And when others are frozen by fear, you're moving forward in quiet preparation. That's how you handle the winters of life. Next, the opportunity of springtime. After every winter, there comes a spring, always. That's the promise of the seasons. No matter how cold, no matter how long, no matter how dark your winter has been, spring shows up right on schedule. And isn't that a wonderful arrangement? You survive the difficulty, and just when you think you can't take another moment, here comes the sunshine, the warmth, the opportunity. That's springtime. A time of beginnings, a time of planting, a time of action. It doesn't stay long. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It simply arrives. And what you do with it, that's what determines the next chapter of your life. Spring is life's great invitation, but make no mistake, it is not a guarantee. Just because the season arrives doesn't mean you will benefit from it. You must do something with it. You must act. You must plant. You must move. You must prepare the soil, get your hands dirty, and get to work. That's how you take advantage of spring. You don't sit on the porch and admire the weather. You get out into the field and plant your future. Opportunity doesn't come with certainty. It comes with potential. It comes with possibility. Spring never promises a harvest. It simply provides a chance. And the harvest depends on your willingness to take that chance, to believe in your efforts, to put something in the ground. Now, some people miss spring because they're still dwelling on winter. still hurting, still bitter, still talking about what didn't work, what they lost, who let them down. And while they're looking back, spring slips right past them. The window closes, the soil hardens, and they wonder why nothing grew. The truth is, you can't plant seeds in frozen ground, but you also can't plant them in hesitation. You've got to move quickly when spring comes. Because life doesn't hand out unlimited opportunities. It gives you a few, a handful of seasons, and it expects you to know what to do with them. That's the great test of spring. Will you seize it or will you stall? There's a skill required here, readiness. You must be ready for spring before it arrives. Because once it does, the clock starts ticking. And if you're not ready, if you don't recognize the season, if you don't have your tools sharpened, your goals clear, your effort aligned, you may watch it come and go without any lasting gain. So your preparation doesn't start in spring. It starts in winter. It starts in the quiet, the cold, the planning. That's when you decide who you're going to be when the opportunity shows up. Now, some will say, I don't know how to plant. I've never done it before. What if I fail? That's the fear of inexperience talking. And let me tell you, everyone plants their first seed without knowing exactly how it'll turn out. Everyone begins in spring with a mix of faith and doubt. But faith must win if you want a future. If you want the reward of fall, you've got to risk the work of spring. That's how it works. You can't skip to the harvest. You earn it through your action, through your consistency, through your belief that what you put in the ground today will bring something beautiful tomorrow. There's a phrase I want you to remember. Take advantage. That's the responsibility of spring. Take advantage of the opportunity. Take advantage of the new start. Take advantage of the energy, the momentum, the open doors. Don't delay. Don't debate. Don't overthink. Move. Act. Start. Because spring does not last forever. Just like all the other seasons, it moves on. And if you don't move with it, you're left behind. And come fall, you'll be empty-handed, watching others reap while you explain why you didn't sow. Some people get good at planting. Others get good at explaining why they didn't. That's the hard truth. And I say this with all the encouragement in the world. You've got to pick your lane. Do you want to be the one harvesting in the fall or the one saying, I was going to, but because no matter how elegant your reasons are, they won't fill your basket. They won't pay your bills. They won't fulfill your purpose. Only planting will. Spring is a gift, a limited time offer, a narrow window. And once you understand that, you stop taking it for granted. You stop waiting. You start moving. You start calling. You start building. You start trying. That's what people of action do in spring. They move. Because they know that life doesn't reward the ones who wait for perfect conditions. It rewards the ones who act in the right season with boldness, with discipline, with courage. And when you do plant with intention. Don't just scatter anything in the ground and hope. Think, plan, choose wisely. Because what you plant, you will eventually harvest. So if you want joy, plant kindness. If you want success, plant service. If you want love, plant patience. The ground doesn't decide your future. You do. And spring is where that decision begins. So when the opportunity of springtime shows up in your life, whether in business, in relationships, in personal growth, recognize it, respect it, and respond to it. Plant, act, take advantage. Because spring won't wait for you. But if you move when it arrives, it will reward you beyond what you imagined. That's the promise of spring.